I've been a mom now for over 2 decades. I have a 20-year-old son now. And as I look back on the 20 years that I've spent being a mom, the issues surrounding this topic have been some of the most difficult that I've had to parent while living in community and having friends. Hi, I'm Sarah Short, your host of the No Way But Through podcast. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all things mom. How to parent through those exhausting days with your little ones, how to be intentional and connected with your big kids, and how to embrace what truly matters and let go of the rest. From life with a newborn to toddlers to teenagers and everything in between, I'll teach you foundational and practical strategies on how to walk through every season of motherhood with courage and creativity, all while prioritizing your relationships with your kids in a home life where all of you can thrive. My Nana once told me, there's no way but through. Turns out she was right in life and in motherhood. So come along with me as we become better moms together. This is the No Way But Through podcast. Hello, welcome into season 3 of the No Way But Through podcast. I am your host, Sarah Short, and I am so glad to be back with y'all again this fall. You know, I took the summer off and spent time with my family, and it has been a really sweet few months of time off from this work that I love so much. I love being with y'all and sharing with you the things that I've learned as a mom. But this summer, as I took time off, my family, we had some really, really sweet time together this summer. As I've told y'all before, if I model anything for you as I work on this podcast, and I do all this work here at No Way But Through, if I model anything for you, it's that I want your family to be your priority. Whether you work or you stay at home full time, you have one kid or many kids, no matter what stage of life you're in with your kids, with you as a mom, you will never regret prioritizing your family. In the margins that you have in your life, if you work full time or if you're a stay-at-home mom, you spend almost all of your time with your kids all day, every day, which is what I know those of you with those little tiny ones do. Let me encourage you once again that you will never regret prioritizing your kids. That's going to look different for each of us because we all have different circumstances. But for me, in this season of life that I'm in as a mom right now, my summers with my children and with my adult kids home, with my teenagers and my younger kids, it is so important for me that when they have a lot of time to be at home and be around, my heart wants to be with them. And so even though I love this work that I do here, these last few months of pouring into my kids and spending time with my family, vacationing with them, and soaking up the sun have been some of the sweetest of 2024 for me. I hope you guys have had a great summer too, but I'm so glad to be back with you here in season 3 of the No Way But Through podcast. I can hardly believe, honestly, that this is my 3rd season. One of my friends asked me the other day, when are you starting your podcast up again? And I was so excited to tell her, I'm getting ready to start. I can't wait to be back at it because I love the young moms that listen every week. And I'm just so grateful for y'all that are here week after week. As I kick off this season, if you are new to this podcast, I would encourage you to go back and listen to episode 14, which were 5 things I wanted you to remember from season 1, and then episode 28, which was a wrap-up of season 2. If you've never listened to this podcast before, those episodes are a great place to start because they wrap up the last 2 seasons and kind of give you an idea of what we talk about on here on this podcast, the topics that we talk about, and also, if you are new over here, I would really encourage you to head over to No Way But Through on Instagram and our growing community over there. We have a question box every week where you can send in questions to me and I pick some of those to answer. And then we also just do a lot of interacting over there on the content of this podcast each week. So if you haven't yet, head over to No Way But Through on Instagram. I thought we'd kick off this season talking about something that I talk about a lot with the young moms in my life that I mentor and that I spend a lot of time with, and then something that I also talk about a lot with my friends in my current stage of parenting as we're parenting our teenagers and our young adult kids. And that is the idea of group parenting. What is group parenting? Why am I bringing up group parenting while I'm kicking off season 3 with this topic? Why this topic? Why does this matter for you young moms and for you older moms as well? For our purposes today, group parenting is collectively agreeing or signing off on a rule or a practice that you will apply to the kids in each family. So essentially, group parenting is coming together with a set of other parents with other families, and all of you agreeing on or applying a rule or a parenting practice across the board to all of your kids, and all of you sort of signing off on that and agreeing to it. I've been a mom now for over 2 decades. I have a 20-year-old son now. And as I look back on the 20 years that I've spent being a mom, the issues surrounding this topic have been some of the most difficult that I've had to parent while living in community and having friends. I absolutely love spending time with my friends. I love talking about parenting with my friends. I love the parents of my kids' friends. They are some of my favorite people in the world. I am, and I'm sure that this will come as no surprise to any of you, but I am an extrovert, and I absolutely love spending time with other people. I love my friends, and I have always wanted my children to have deep and rich and real friendships as well. And so much of my life as a mom has not looked like me sort of secluding myself at home with my family, because I really, really love to be around people, and it fills my cup when I get to spend time with my friends. And so I invest a lot of my time in my friendships and relationships. One of the big shifts that happens to you as a mom is that when your kids are babies and toddlers and preschoolers, you are pretty much spending time with your friends and hanging out with your friends, and then the babies and the toddlers are just kind of running around and playing together. You're hanging out with your friends and then their kids. But as your kids get older, they begin to develop friendships of their own at school or at sports or at church, and you oftentimes will then become friends with the moms of your kids' friends. And while most of your friends might have been very much like you when your kids were babies and toddlers, all of a sudden you find yourself parenting with people who do things maybe very differently than you do them, and have different rules and philosophies about parenting. And yet you end up spending a lot of time with them because you're doing sports together or school together, or your kids are hanging out, you're throwing birthday parties and they're each attending those, and you're getting to know one another and becoming friends. And you may not have chosen each other outside of your kids being friends. This, of course, has happened in my life a whole lot now that I've been parenting for 20 years. And I will tell you that some of the friends that I have become friends with simply because my children have become friends with their kids are some of my favorite people. I love being around people who think differently than I do. And I love having a wide and colorful group of friends who love all sorts of different things and who make my life better because I get to see the world through a different lens through them. And so for you young moms listening, those of you with the babies and the toddlers, you probably aren't experiencing this quite yet, but you will. And this is why I want to share this with you today, because this idea of group parenting is likely going to come into your life in one way or another, if it hasn't yet, sometime in the next few years. And if you are prepared for it, if you know what it is, then you will be able to identify it when it comes, and you'll be informed and be able to make the decisions that are best for your kids and your family. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this topic over the years, and Jason and I have essentially put parenting with our friends, parenting in community, into 2 different buckets. 1 is philosophy, and 2 is practice. Let's talk about parenting philosophy first. This is as it relates to you having friends and you parenting in community with other people. It is so good, and I would even say essential, that you have friends who share your parenting philosophies. Maybe they share your faith, or they share things like a commitment to being involved in your kids' lives. Your general philosophy of parenting is quite similar. You want your kids to go to church or be involved in their youth group. Or you want your kids to be active and involved in sports and not spend all of their time at home on video games or glued to screens. You want your kids to eat healthy and grow up to be healthy and strong adults. And so activity, physical activity, being outside is important to both of you. You are involved parents. And so you attend your kids' games and you volunteer at school and you have deep conversations with your kids and you talk about all of these things together. It is so good for you to surround yourself with friends, to have friends who share your parenting philosophies. Whether that's your faith or how you parent in general, how you view family, it might even be things like how your family serves in the community or how you care for marginalized people, right? Jason and I have benefited as parents in innumerable ways because we have very real and rich and meaningful relationships with people who share our parenting philosophy. We go to the same church and we're all deeply devoted to our kids. We want our kids to have thriving friendships, healthy friendships. We want our kids to be kind and respectful to others. I'm sitting here now, even recording this podcast, and the faces of my friends are flashing in front of me. And as I think about them, these people that Jason and I are friends with, that we love so much, that share so much of our parenting philosophy. We have needed their support and their encouragement and their advice. And we love sitting around tables with them and talking about parenting and how they do things at home. And we've gotten so many good ideas in parenting from our friends and our community around us. When I get messages from you guys telling me that you're struggling with friendship or you're struggling with finding community in a new town, my heart just always feels so deeply for you because, one, I was there when we moved to Michigan and I know how hard that was. I didn't have any friends and I didn't have any community. And I know how essential it is that you have people around you who parent in similar ways to you, that can encourage you and build you up and support you and that love your kids. And so every time you send me a message saying that you're struggling with this, you've moved, or you're having a hard time finding community, I always stop and pray for you that God will bring you real and rich community into your lives because I know how hard it is not to have it. I remember. So very practically, what it looks like to have friends that share your parenting philosophy means that you're talking about parenting together. You're friends with people who share some of your values or all of your values. And when you get together, you're sitting on the bleachers, cheering on your kids at a game, or you're hanging out at school, volunteering together. These are people that share your general views on parenting and want to see your kids thrive. Let me say this here. You absolutely can be friends with people who don't share any of your parenting philosophies. It is an absolutely beautiful thing to be friends with someone that is nothing like you. I have friends like that. I learned so much from them about different views of life that I just don't have and have never experienced. Everyone has a story. And everyone has things that inform their parenting. And I have had some of the sweetest conversations and friendships with people who parent completely differently than I do. I actually love being challenged. I love being challenged to think differently. And I love seeing people not simply as a collection of their views, but as people with a story. And I love sitting across from someone and doing the really good work of wanting to understand, to truly understand who they are and why they think the way they think. It is important that you have friends who share your parenting philosophies. And like I said before, I think it's almost essential to be parenting alongside people who help encourage you and support you and pray for you and your kids. But I also know from my own real life experience that it is possible and beneficial in its own unique way to be friends with people who are completely different from you. So that first bucket, philosophy. It is good to surround yourself with people who share your same parenting philosophy. The second bucket is practice. And this is where it gets tricky. This is where group parenting enters the scene. Practice is the specific ways you implement your parenting philosophies. These are things like your rules, your expectations of your kids, the guidelines you've chosen over when and how you will grant your kids different privileges, how you give gifts, how you celebrate holidays. Your parenting practices are the living out of your parenting philosophies. Group parenting is collectively agreeing to a practice or a set of practices across multiple families. And group parenting, this is something that Jason and I have never done and will never do. While it is really good for you to have friends around you who are the parents of your kids' friends, especially who share in your general overall philosophies of parenting, it can be incredibly unwise to sign off on or agree in practice on how you implement those philosophies. One of the main reasons for that is that while your family is one family in a collective community, your family is unique. Each of your kids are unique and different from other kids. If you agree or sign off on with other friends a certain practice or a way that you're going to implement some of the philosophies that you have, that can create a tremendous amount of conflict and problems within your community of friends and really do damage to your relationships. And maybe even more importantly than that, you signing off on a specific way you're going to do something, a specific way you're going to parent something with other families could be really damaging to your child and to your relationship with your child. If you agree to group parent something, meaning you agree on a practice, on the way you're going to parent something, you have turned over to a collective group of people your ability to change your mind. Because you signed off on something, you have forfeited your ability to shift and change and choose based on circumstances what is actually best for your child. Because you've agreed to do something a certain way because a group has decided that it's best done that way. And you, as part of the group, have been a willing participant in it. Let me give you 3 examples that I think will help illustrate this for you and help you understand why we absolutely do not do this over here and what kinds of problems group parenting has caused for us inside our community. Example number 1. Let's talk about a gaming system. You moms with your kids under 5 years old, you probably haven't quite encountered this yet, but at some point, especially if you have boys, one of your boys is going to want a PlayStation or an Xbox or a gaming system or computer of some kind. Gosh, y'all, if you have those little ones at home, your husbands are probably the ones that are playing with the gaming system. But it won't be long before one of your kids is asking for a PlayStation or an Xbox. Like with anything that's electronic, these things can be addictive, right? We all know that because we deal with our phones, right? They are made to keep our kids coming back, drawing them in again and again and again. And it can be really, really hard for kids to self-regulate when it comes to gaming systems. And so it's Christmas and you've gotten your son an Xbox and his buddies have an Xbox, and over Christmas break, he's playing a ton, and it's fine because it's Christmas break and nobody's on a schedule. And then it's about time for him to head back to school after the holidays, and you realize that your son really needs guidelines around his new gaming system. The lazy days of the holidays have now come to an end and you need some sort of guidelines for him. When is he going to play? How many hours per day are we going to let him play? Is there a cutoff time at night? What about the weekends and the weekdays? You and your husband talk about it and you decide that you're going to limit the video game playing to the weekends. You aren't going to put a whole bunch of guidelines around that, but they're just allowed to play on the weekends in their free time. No specific hours, no specific guidelines. You're just making a general rule that you're going to save video games for the weekends. During the week, you want your kids focused on schoolwork and family dinner and playing outside, and that you're going to reserve video games for the weekends. Everyone goes back to school. All the kids are talking about what they got for Christmas, and multiples of your son's friends got video gaming systems, and some of them are allowed to play during the week and play as soon as they get home from school, all the way up until dinner time. Other friends are allowed to play after school up until dinner time and all the way after dinner until midnight. So then you're hanging out and having coffee with your friends, and y'all start talking about the new gaming systems that have arrived in your houses. And everyone is sort of sharing different guidelines that you have around it. And one of the moms says, I think it would be great if we could all agree on when they could play and they're all on at the same time. And I think it would just make it a lot easier for us if we all just agree when they can play. This is an example of group parenting entering the chat. While it might seem like a reasonable or even good idea at the moment, it's actually a really terrible idea. What works for one family might not work for another. What is best for one kid might not be best for another kid. Family dynamics and family schedules are so unique and personal to each family. And if everyone at the table were to agree on when their kids played Xbox and PlayStation, some child is not going to get the best parenting. Someone is sacrificing what is best for their kid on the altar of let's all do this together to make it easier for us. I share this story with you because this is my story. This was my experience with gaming systems. This is how it went down in my life. We made the decision to let our kids play on the weekends without a whole lot of boundaries and guardrails because our family is very engaged with one another on the weekends. We have family breakfast on Saturday mornings and family chores. We watch a lot of sports together. And so I didn't need a bunch of rules around the gaming systems on the weekend because we're busy. We go to church on Sunday, then we have Sunday dinner together and have all of these things that we do with each other that we just didn't need to regulate video games on the weekend very much. The guidelines we put in place for our family were specific to our family. I didn't want my kids playing during the week because I want them playing outside with their neighbors after school, not on an Xbox. One of my friends in that group has a son who plays travel soccer on the weekends, right? They leave every Friday afternoon and don't get home until Sunday evenings. And so it wouldn't make sense for her to give her son his video game playing time on the weekends. He would never get to play. So he plays during the week. And that is absolutely what's best for her son. Do you see my point? While we all might agree in philosophy that we don't want our kids glued to video games or addicted to video games, the way this practically plays out in practice is unique for each family. And if we were to sign off on all implementing it the same way, we would not be being the best parents to our specific kids. Example number 2. This is another real example from my life, and it's important for me to actually share these real life examples with you because I want you to know that these are not straw man arguments. These are actually the experiences that I have had and how they played out and how they've informed my thinking on group parenting. So we belong to a community pool, and a bunch of our friends, some of our friends whose kids go to the same school as my kids go to, and then some of my friends who we go to church with, and we all go to the pool together. We have lots of different friends and kids who have been at the pool with us over the years, which has made for some awesome time for us as parents because we get to hang out with our friends and our kids have gotten to hang out with each other. And we just absolutely love going to the pool in the summer. One of the things that began to happen one particular summer was that all of our kids kept coming to us asking to get ice cream from the snack shack. They wanted to buy ice cream treats at the pool. Understandable, right? Y'all, I think ice cream is like $3 at the pool. And we have 5 children in our family. And so for us, if we were going to get our kids each an ice cream at the pool, it would be $15 every single time we went to the pool. And maybe we're cheap, I don't know. But there's absolutely no way we were doing that. And so I was constantly saying no to my kids about ice cream, and my friends were doing the same as well for their kids. These kids were coming and asking for ice cream from this snack shack too, and so we were all just continually having to say, no, we're not getting ice cream here. No, 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 no. And so one day, one of my friends suggested, why don't we all just agree that we're not getting any ice cream here at the pool? And then we can just tell the kids we're not doing any ice cream here, and they will all just get it that it's a no, and they'll stop asking us all the time. Again, is that totally unreasonable? No. But there was absolutely no way I was going to agree to that. And here's why. Let's say we're at a baseball game and my son hits a walk-off home run and our family is meeting up with friends at the pool afterwards. We've packed the pool bag in the car and we're leaving the baseball game, and the rest of the team is going out for ice cream. But we need to get to the pool to meet up with our friends. So we tell our kids we can't go with the team to get ice cream. Well, we need to get to the pool because we're meeting our friends. So when I get to the pool, what I want to do as the mom of my family is to let my kids get a $3 ice cream at the pool. Something I have said no to most of the summer, but something I want to say yes to today because we just had an awesome day at the ballpark and we didn't get to go out with the team. So I'm going to let my kids get ice cream that Saturday afternoon at the pool. Y'all, if I have agreed that we're not going to let any of our kids get ice cream at the pool, if I've collectively agreed to that with my friends, then I have willingly turned over to a collective group the ability to make that decision in that moment for my family, the choice that I think is best for my kids in that moment. Could we get ice cream anyway and me say to my friends, hey, I'm going to let my kids get ice cream today because this just happened at the ballpark? Sure, I could do that. But over the last 15 years of parenting school-aged kids and older, that does not go over well. But we agreed. Now I have to let my kids get ice cream because your kids are getting ice cream, which actually isn't true. But we've all willingly created a scenario all in the name of making it easier for us. We've created a scenario that's not good for anybody. And most importantly, I don't get to be the best mom to my kids in that moment. I have to choose between being the best mom to my kids in that moment or ticking off one of my friends. We all have different personalities, and there are different ways that all of us would handle that. Maybe one of us would say, I don't care if you're mad, I'm doing it anyway. We would probably say that internally, right? And maybe one of us would say to our kids, I'm sorry, we'll have to get ice cream after we leave the pool. But that's not the point. The point is you created this scenario willingly for yourself and got yourself into this bind because you agreed to this in the first place. This is another real life example in my life of why we do not group parent and why we do not agree to anything in practice as a collective with other families about how we're going to parent something. Example number 3, and this is probably the example that might be most controversial here in this podcast today, but also the one that I think is the most important. And this is as it relates to smartphones. I don't want you young moms to check out of this podcast right now, okay? Because I want you to hear this. This is something that might take you years to think about and think through, to talk about with your husband or even talk about with your friends, because this can have really significant consequences on your relationships with your kids and with your community of friends. One popular thing going around today as it relates to kids and smartphones are parents coming together and deciding when kids will get a smartphone. A collective group of friends or parents at a school or in a community will agree that they're not going to allow their kids to have a smartphone until a certain age. The wait till 8th pledge actually has parents sign a document agreeing that they are not going to give their child a smartphone until at least the end of 8th grade. And then parents who sign the document can see who else has signed the documents, and you receive a list of the families who've decided to sign off on it. There are actually whole schools that will have this wait till 8th agreement in place, and families will know which families have signed it and which families have not. Y'all, I cannot tell you how much I would encourage you, how strongly I would encourage you not to do this kind of thing. Many parents who do this are often first-time parents with their oldest child, and they have not yet had to parent through the different circumstances with smartphones and do not know what's ahead. It seems like an awesome idea if your parenting philosophy means that you want to wait until high school or almost high school to give your kid a smartphone, and to have other parents who will agree with that too. But y'all, when you are talking about things like practice, exactly when you're going to give it to your child and how long you're going to delay it, it can wreak havoc on your relationships with your friends and your relationship with your kid. Let me help you understand this with an illustration. Several years ago, I had some friends who agreed to something similar to this. I was not part of this, but they had talked with me about it and had shared that they had all decided that they were going to wait until 8th grade to give their kids a smartphone. Well, one of the moms decided that she was going to give her son a smartphone earlier in the summer so that he could have time with a smartphone over the summer while he was home with his parents. And in the spirit of the rule, they were waiting until 8th grade. I mean, what's 8th grade? Is it the day in the middle of May when you graduate from 7th grade? Are you then an 8th grader? Is it the day you start 8th grade in August? What if it's your son's birthday in April of his 7th grade year, and you want to give him his smartphone for his birthday so that he has a month or so of school left in 7th grade and can kind of practice on it before you send him cold turkey into 8th grade with it? Is that okay to do? This is what I watched go down, and it created no small amount of conflict within a group of friends, because while their philosophy of wanting to delay giving their kids a smartphone until sometime around when they started 8th grade, their practices of implementing it looked different. But they had what they thought agreed in practice, and nobody truly understood what the actual specific rules were. And it took away from each of those the ability just to choose and make the right decision for their child, because they didn't even know what they'd agreed to. And so what this did was it created all of this unnecessary conflict, because they had agreed to and signed off on something together as a collective that referred to practice. Y'all, I have now parented 3 children through getting smartphones and through having access to social media. We have parented every one of them differently. The timetables have been different for each of them. They are different kids. We don't have a specific formula that has worked for each kid. Instead, we parent our kids as individuals. They need different things. They work on different timelines. They are in a different birth order, and that matters. They are different people. And if that is true with my own family, with my own children, then how true is that amongst the dozen kids in different homes across my friend group? You cannot anticipate all that your kids might need in parenting. You cannot anticipate the unique experiences that each of them are going to be in when you are evaluating when to give them a smartphone. One of them might not be ready in 8th grade, at the beginning or at the end of 8th grade. But if you've signed off on this thing and you've told your kids this is how you're doing it, and then you decide to withhold it from your child because they aren't ready, you have then created a real issue with your child and in your relationship with them, simply because you made a decision that was best for them, but had actually agreed on something else years before. And you've now created conflict with your friends because y'all made an agreement and you're going back on it. From video game systems to ice cream at the pool to smartphones to anything else in parenting. Jason and I just do not group parent. When it comes to practices and how we are implementing the different philosophies that we have about parenting, we never have and we never will sign off on or agree to anything with a group of parents on how we are going to specifically parent our kids. And this comes from a place of love. Deep, deep love and care for our specific children. And it comes from a place of deep love for our friends and our friendships. We never want easier to be the reason that we group parent something. I don't need to point to another family or a group of other families and tell my kids that our collective agreement is one of the reasons behind why we're doing something. We don't want our kids thinking about life that way. Well, if they're doing it, it must be the right way to do it. Or if everyone in the group is doing it, it must be best. Isn't this thinking a recipe for disaster with our kids? Do we want them thinking this way? Thinking that this is how we make our decisions? Y'all, I sure don't want my teenagers thinking that way. I think our parents said it best to us. If everyone else jumped off a bridge, would you? I want my kids to grow up to be independent thinkers and to make good decisions, even if it goes against the crowd. And I want to model that for them as well. It is so much the opposite of what we're trying to teach our kids if we group parent things. I mean, how many times do we have to say to our kids, I don't really care if Johnny's family is doing it that way. This is how we do it over here, right? Aren't we trying to teach our kids that we are making the decisions that are best for them because we love them so much and no one knows them like we do? But then if we contradict that and we sign off on things and agree to parenting practices by group parenting things, aren't we acting in the opposite of what we're trying to say to our kids when we tell them it's okay if our family does things differently? It takes courage to say no to group parenting. It takes courage to parent your kids the way you think it's right to parent your kids, in the ways that are best for them, no matter what anyone else is doing. I want you to have that courage and to feel empowered to parent your kids in the best ways to parent them and to allow your friends to do the same for their kids. It is really important, as I've mentioned already, that you surround yourself with friends who share your parenting philosophies, parents who share your faith, who go to your church, who want to raise their kids with the same values you want to raise your kids with, and who can come around you and support you, and who you feel so comfortable sending your kids to their houses because you know that their parenting is so similar to your parenting. There is so much good in that. And y'all, it's a gift. I have so many rich friendships with people who love my kids so well and who generally share the same parenting philosophies that we do. And it is indeed such a gift. But if you start to apply that same principle to parenting practices, and place expectations on your friends or on your group of friends that we all come together and agree to parent in practice the same ways, it can cause so much division and so many problems within your friendships that you just don't need to be there because you don't need to agree on practice. In fact, the very best thing that you can do for your friends is to let them parent their kids in the way that they think is best to parent their kids, and for you to parent your kids in the ways that you think are best for your kids, and that you retain your right at all times to change your mind at any point about anything in order to make the decisions that are right for your kids in those moments. I don't want you to ever give that up to a collective because something that seems like a good idea at the time, it'll make your parenting life easier, so you decide to sign off on it. I want you to be courageous in your parenting. So, to boil all this down, We love parenting alongside other families who share our general philosophies of parenting, that share our faith and our values. And we also love parenting alongside our friends in practice, in that we give our friends the freedom and the space and what is rightfully theirs as parents to make the decisions that are best for their kids at any moment, as circumstances in their lives shift and change, and most importantly, we allow them to retain the ability to parent their individual kids with the decisions that are best for their individual kids at any moment, without ever asking them to sign on to a collective as it relates to practice. I hope this helps give you guys some framework to think through this as you're parenting in community, as you're parenting alongside your friends, and even alongside your siblings with your kids' cousins, and being able to encourage one another as it relates to your parenting philosophies. But then allow the people that you love to parent their kids in the ways that are best for their kids and their family. And for you as parents, as individual parents that are listening to this podcast today, I want your relationships with your kids to thrive, and I want your friendships to thrive. And this is just one of those pitfalls that you can fall into if you aren't intentional about it, and if you don't think about it as you're going into all these different decisions that you're going to be making with your kids as they grow up. This is one of those things that's hard to know and to be able to foresee how it might not be a good idea to group parent because it seems like a good idea at the time. Well, that's it for today. So glad to be back with y'all again as we kick off season 3 on the No Way But Through podcast. See y'all next time. You've just listened to another episode of the No Way But Through podcast. If you want to connect with other like-minded moms and join our growing online community, head on over to Instagram and follow along with us at No Way But Through. You can always reach me over there throughout the week. And if you'd like to financially support this podcast, there's a link at the bottom of every episode where you can do just that.